We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Been tipping them on the top, and then I've been home run hitting a lot. They call me G-Dub. Is it safe to say I'm superior?
I don't even know what to say about that bump music.
I like it.
That was... What the hell was that? Oh, dear God, it sounds like somebody's nightmare. Welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live, where the sarcasm lives on. It's great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the second day of September 2025. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, heavily armed as always. I got to protect myself against drugged out trannies. We're going to have that conversation tonight. Oh, yeah. Buckle up. Never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. I can't help it, kids. I was born this way. And never, ever apologizing for my Christian faith. Joining me, as always, the one, the only. We may not always see eye to eye, but we have great conversations. Julian ACR, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, I'm back, the blue-collar intellectual, here to shake your preconceived notions about everything you've been lied to about your entire life. We're going to have a fantastic show today. Make sure you join the Ram TV Live family. Join, like, subscribe, share it with everybody, and if you have an issue, take it up with us. You know, the lines are open. Go ahead and call. You know, we got some smoke for you.
Yeah. Are we a dysfunctional family? No, you're talking about the Ram family. Are we a dysfunctional family?
Is there such thing as a family that isn't dysfunctional?
The Cleavers.
You know my favorite Christmas movie?
Cleavers.
One of my favorite Christmas movies is The Ref with Dennis Leary, Kevin Spacey.
Never saw it.
Oh, if you want a movie that makes you feel good about your family dynamic, watch that movie.
I just got caught up. I just watched The Sandlot.
Oh, good movie.
For the first time. Dennis Leary was in that movie. Very, very young Dennis Leary.
Yes, he was.
Our call-in number, if you would like to be a part of tonight's program, Julian, of course, teasing this. We'd love to hear from you. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let your voice be heard. 833-603-8255. That's 833-603-TALK. If you'd like to be a part of it via video, just send a video link request over to granitestalive@gmail.com, which coincidentally is the email address as well, too. So if you have any complaints, comments, concerns, you want to call us a bunch of idiots, that's okay, too. granitestalive@gmail.com. I actually enjoy hate mail more than I do the good mail. I have to be honest with you, because it just lets me know I'm pissing people off and I'm doing my job, that's my job. I'm a contrarian. I'm supposed to piss people off. And I think tonight we may actually do this. So we're going to get into it right now. Joining us on the program this evening will be Maureen Steele. She is a filmmaker that is going to be debuting a film called Taken, State-Sanctioned Kidnapping, on September 7th of this year at the Legacy Theater in Massachusetts. They're going to host a red carpet world premiere of Taken, State-Sanctioned Kidnapping, as it's described, a searing new documentary exposing the dark underbelly of America's Child Protective Services agencies, hosted by Boston radio show host Jeff Cooner. The evening will unite activists, journalists, legal experts, and citizens determined to shine a light on one of the most disturbing state-sanctioned abuse issues and abuses of power in our lifetime. So that's going to be coming up here in just a little bit. Also in the show tonight, Wayne Morrow. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the John Birch Society. We're going to be talking about the Minneapolis shooting, and has left-wing rhetoric claimed more lives? I think a lot of people would agree that it has. And I'm also going to have a challenge for some of the lawmakers out there, and I think you'll appreciate this particular perspective. Then coming up, President Trump initiatives to secure American elections, trying to lock down those election processes. Garland Favorito is going to be joining us. He's the co-founder of Voters Organized for Trust Election Results. Interestingly enough, that spells out voter in Georgia, so he's going to be joining us on the program tonight. And I think that's what we've got for guests. So we've got a great program for you coming up. What, by the way, Juan, what time, because I didn't get a note on this one, what time is the Maureen Steele joining us? Is she top of the hour or 7:30? 7:30? Okay, perfect. So we have a little bit of time to opine.
Which is great, because I got something for you.
All right, what do you got?
All right. So got posted this week, Guide to Destroying the West. Convince women to hate men, convince men to hate themselves, convince minorities to hate whites, convince whites to hate themselves, convince the young to be LGBT, whatever, and convince the old that they are backward. It only takes a generation if done correctly.
I was going to say, it sounds an awful lot like the agenda of the left right now.
Yes, it is. And while I agree with a lot of it, what I think there's a level of nuance here, right? Because the vast majority of people don't live online, and that's where all this shit is happening. Mm-hmm. If you tune into social media on a daily basis, this is exactly what you see. Mm-hmm. But the vast majority of us go about our daily lives, amongst each other, white, black, fucking lesbian, gay, whatever, indifferently. Mm-hmm. We pretty much we shop, we do things together, and we don't have a problem. Mm-hmm. There's no race war in the real world against white people or black people or gays or any of that shit. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you get online, you have hyper ideological people on both sides of the aisle who are constantly taking shots at each other. Mm-hmm. And you have an agenda that is also playing out in academia, in all the major psychology, sociology, all that. And you also have it playing out on the left as a whole as they're divide and conquer in order to get their Marxist proletariat revolution. Mm-hmm. And the problem is I keep trying to tell people, turn off your Twitter machine, go out and touch some freaking grass, engage with normal people, because the more you're online in this freaking cesspool of garbage and snakes, you're going to start to let this warp your perception of reality. Don't allow them to win. You only allow them to win if you actually decide to live this lifestyle. Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, if you really want to restore your faith in humanity, go to the arrivals gate at the airport. Actually, I love that movie, Love Actually. My wife got me hooked up on that. And it's the opening line. It's like, if you really want to restore your faith in humanity, go to the arrivals gate at an airport. And what you will find is love conquering all. And,
yes.
And people have accused me of being the angry conservative. And I'll be honest with you. I actually live a very, very happy life. A big part of the political anger is, to be honest, there's a part of it that's a shtick. I have to be honest, because listen, the bottom line is I'm not a reporter. Somebody actually accused me once of being a terrible reporter. I'm like, well, then you've seriously misjudged what it is that I do. My time on WNTK, for instance. So 4 years of doing 16 hours a week of live extemporaneous news, political analysis, commentary, but then also community interviews and things like that. I said, bottom line is that it's entertainment. I'm not breaking news. I'm not a reporter. I'm a commentator. And first and foremost, what I do is entertainment.
Yep.
Just my form of entertainment just happens to be in a very gregarious fashion, expressing myself and expressing some viewpoints that admittedly may piss people off. But the one thing, whether it's in my personal life or in my professional life, there are two things that I hold as absolute truths. Number one is that, and I've been accused of this, you are very consistent in your message, because what I express and the ideals and the values and the morals and the ethics that I profess behind the microphone are the values and the morals that I live my life to. I'm not a fake person, and I'm not a different person behind the microphone that I am in real life. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that I want to be the one person in the room who, when I say something, makes people go, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. But thank God somebody finally did.
See, I think, but that's the key, right?
We're all thinking it.
Well, that's the thing, is we live in a society where people get paid to be flamboyant and obnoxious and just say random shit.
Mm-hmm.
But there needs to be that key of saying the things that need to be said, that everybody is thinking, so that we can have the conversation about the solution.
Yeah.
But the problem is it always stays surface level. It's always say the flamboyant topic, the flamboyant thing, and then people don't delve into what's the root cause of what's getting us here. Where's the solution going? And I think that's the issue, is like, we're not reporters. We're entertainers. We talk about the news. We talk about things going on in society, but we try to stay solution focused, because the vast majority of the people out there who are reporters aren't solution focused. They
And to be
care
honest
about
with
the
you,
ratings, the clicks, the likes, the retweets, the shares. It's political gangbanging. It's the algorithmic abyss, but it's never 100% honest, real solution focused.
So I was never allowed to say this when I was a terrestrial radio broadcast host. I could never tell people that I didn't listen to broadcast radio. I actually listened to Sirius XM. And I don't listen to, people are always like, oh my God, I bet you on your playlist is Sirius XM Patriot. Nope. Because I don't listen to talk radio. And I've never listened to talk radio because I don't want my message or having anybody else's message creep its way into mine. I'll give you a perfect example. I was accused once of stealing a line from another radio broadcast host. And the line was, we were talking about illegal immigration. And I said, well, you can't bring here, there without here becoming there. Okay. And somebody said, you stole that from, and they mentioned the person's name. And I said, no, actually, I can give you the origin of that. And that was in 7th and 8th grade. My guidance counselor, Peg Fabre, had a poster up on her wall of Ziggy. If you remember Ziggy, the cartoon character. And Ziggy was sitting on a cliff with his dog. And he said, we should enjoy here while we're here because there's no here there. And so for me, it was just a logical progression of that line into something that I thought dealt with illegal immigration. You cannot bring El Salvador here. You cannot bring Panama here. You cannot bring Mexico here without eventually here becoming there. And I was accused of stealing that line. And I said, no, hey, you know what? Great minds think alike. And I'm sure somewhere over the course of the hundreds of thousands of hours of broadcast opinion-based media, somebody has crossed over and said something that somebody else has said. So it's perfectly understandable why that would happen. But I'm digressing. I was listening today to, and I had just changed over. I was switching. My radio is generally set to 80s on 8 because I love 80s music. And I was just tired of listening to Rio by Duran Duran. I'm like, they play that song all the time. So I switched over, and in my rotation is Fox News. It's the radio simulcast of the television show. So I was listening to that, and I was thinking, even at 10:30 this morning, it was still opinion. So here's the news. We're going to give you the news segment. And then joining us next is going to be this person and that person. That's going to wind us giving us a conservative, or at least an ostensibly conservative opinion on what this news piece is. And I was thinking to myself, is there actually news today? No. Can I get 60 minutes of news that isn't opinion, that isn't somebody trying to sway my opinion from one way to another? And, one of the questions that came up, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Dan Roberts. Dan Roberts is actually the first person who ever reported on the connection between SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and mass shootings. So Dan reaches out to me last week and he says, I want to write a book with you on this, based upon my experience as a tactical operations trainer, active shooter response trainer from a law enforcement perspective, and the research that he's been doing since 2009 when he first started compiling information about this. So we talked about this. And then he said, here's the problem. You're never going to get the straight scoop from the media. They're never going to tell you what the problem is. They're never going to get into the SSRIs. As a matter of fact, I got a cease and desist letter from a pharmaceutical company when I started to talk on WNTK about the connections between mass shootings and SSRIs. They told me, you need to stop because we will sue you. And it was the only time on terrestrial FCC governed airwaves that I ever used the F-bomb. And I said, respectfully, and insert the name of it. I'll tell you exactly who it was. It was GlaxoSmithKline. Respectfully, GlaxoSmithKline, you can go fuck yourself because I will never stop talking about this until people start to take a serious look at the connections between the poison that you pump into our communities and the end result of you over-medicating underdeveloped brains.
And where's this all start at, right? So you had, back in the early 70s, you had the big pharma started advertising on TV for the first time. You had a massive deregulation in the amount of poisons and stuff we allow in our foods. And the major the major backers and financiers of every medical school research facility in the country are pharmaceutical companies and the medical and the big pharma, the medical industrial complex. So you're getting a skewed from education from the beginning of every single doctor out there. They're getting a skewed education. They're walking out into the world, and only some of them throughout their practice wake up and go, holy shit, I've been a part of the problem the whole time.
Dr. Peter Bregan was one of those individuals who has done extensive clinical research into the connections between many, many black box warning SSRIs and homicidal ideations and suicidal ideations. But that wasn't the point. What Dan had said yesterday in the conversation that I was having with him on the phone was, you're never going to get the media to ever report on this because where do Fox News, where do MSNBC, CNN, any of the major news networks, where do they derive a significant amount of advertising revenue from?
Big pharma.
Big pharma.
Whatever you got, we got a pill for it. We got a shot for it. We got a procedure for it.
Here's how Big Pharma sees the average American, and specifically the adolescent population.
As a piggy bank.
Oh, mouth open. Just keep feeding drugs in there and give us your money. Now, I've been very open about this. When I first moved to New Hampshire, I moved to do two things. Number one, to host the morning drive show on WNTK and WUVR, and then also to run a juvenile detention facility, a 28-bed residential juvie facility here in New Hampshire. And when we would do an intake, or if we would transfer a child out of our custody into another facility, it generally involved a shopping bag filled with pharmaceuticals. Most of those were ADHD medications and then antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs. These kids, I had kids that were on Ambien.
I was on a lot of that shit. So when I was a kid, I got diagnosed with ADD. I had Ritalin, I had Adderall. At one point, they even put me on Demerol. I was sitting in class drooling. You know what it took me? I started flushing my pills down the toilet, started refusing to take them. I started smoking a little bit of weed before class at the beginning of the day just to calm my mind down so that I could focus. And then around maybe lunchtime, I'd go out in my car and take one hit. And I mean literally for medical purposes, because it didn't make me feel good, but it did slow me down just enough that I could focus. And then my dad goes, you know what? And initially he was mad. He goes, you're more awake and cognizant than you were when you were on the drugs. Your test scores have gone up. Your grades have gone up. I'm not going to argue with you. And then it became a focus on, all right, let's get be in shape, eat right. Like a lot of the stuff that we're dosing our bodies up with, we could solve through exercise, through diet, through sunlight, through proper vitamins and stuff, through ditching the freaking Twitter machines, getting off of social media. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff we're dealing with right now that are downstreams. I just had a guest on. We were talking about the nefarious nature of AI, video games, social media, this psychological industry that peddles nonstop validation and affirmation as if people aren't supposed to be told no, that's objectively a bad thing. Stuffing, was it My 500-Pound Life? Stuffing your face.
Oh, no, 600-pound life.
600-pound life. Yeah, stuffing your face with freaking donuts all day, sitting in front of a laptop.
Well, how do we get people to take COVID jabs? We give them a Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, here's a gift certificate for a Krispy Kreme donut, as if your fat ass needs a Krispy Kreme donut on top of the poison that you just put in your body in the form of a COVID vaccine.
I started looking up diets when I was starting, like good diets for me when I started working out and losing weight and stuff. As soon as I started looking up diets, you know what I got? Massive amounts of advertising for every cosmetic surgery you could possibly imagine to get rid of fat. What happened instead? I just worked out, I dieted, I got proper sleep, I drank a lot of water, I drink black coffee instead of cream and sugar and all sorts of crazy shit. And what happened? I'm down 25 pounds and I'm fitting into jeans I haven't been able to wear in a long ass time. I just had to buy a new belt because my belt doesn't hold up my pants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just punched in GLP-1 meds just to see what comes up here. And, there's all these sponsored things. $45 to get yourself a prescription for Wegovy, right? Because, your fat ass can't exercise and put down the garbage food. So we're just going to do injections so that way we can, drop the weight because we don't want to do the hard work. We have become such a decadent society. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to have to do the hard work. I want to do it easy. I want to take a shot and have the fat melt off. Well, the problem is once you stop the GLP-1s, what happens? You regain the weight. You don't regain the muscle mass that you lost. So now instead of being 200 pounds and 35% body fat, now you're 200 pounds and 40% body fat. You actually made yourself fatter.
So this goes even further because what are the biggest lobbyist backers against RFK getting rid of all the endocrine blockers and endocrine disruptors in our food and in everything that we own, use, and interact with on a daily basis? It's Big Pharma. Why? Because when they start getting you dosed on all of these things to fix your hormones and fix your endocrine system, you have to be on them for life because your body stops producing it naturally. When what you should be doing is doing the things that I laid out to increase your testosterone naturally because the vast majority of people are not at such catastrophic levels that they can't fix their hormone production. They can't fix their endocrine system through proper dieting and exercise, vitamins, sleep, things like that. But one of the number one things leading to loss of sleep is people getting in their bed at night and scrolling. Scrolling.
Yeah.
And guess
and
what?
you know what?
Loss
And
of
I was guilty of that.
Yeah.
I was absolutely guilty of that. And I realized that was an addiction. And it was a difficult thing to break.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I recognize that, and I have to be honest that my wife, God bless her, has been incredibly perseverant at helping me to become more cognizant of how this thing was stealing my time taking time away from things that mattered.
Me and my wife are working through it now. We have to stop scrolling because the doom scroll at night is keeping us from going to sleep when it's not like we're doing anything productive. And I used to fool myself and think, oh, well, I'm reading a study right now. So it's different. It's not the same as scrolling through Instagram. It's like, no, you still have the blue light in your face. You're still scrolling. You're still disrupting your sleep. As a matter of fact, it disrupts your sleep for the next 3 hours. So you're not even entering REM sleep properly when you close your eyes. And that leads to a 60% increase in anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation.
So there was an article that it was an opinion piece that came up in the New York Times yesterday. We ran the CDC. Unfortunately, I'm trying to pull up a copy of this here, and it's behind. It was open source yesterday. Now it's behind paywalls. We ran the CDC. Kennedy is endangering every American's health. Talking about food, talking about vaccines, talking about the food colorings. All right, I have a 12-year-old stepson. If he eats that red dye, I think it's like red dye number 40.
Yeah.
If he eats that, he's off the wall.
Yeah.
Like it's a night and day difference.
Hawaiian Punch used to be like mainlining freaking Swedish fish off a freaking desk like Tony Montana.
Well, yeah, but I mean the Swedish fish that's not a natural color.
No.
There's a lot of chemicals in there that are toxic. And, we ran the CDC. When you think about the Centers for Disease Control and you think about the Food and Drug Administration, the Food and Drug Administration has played God in this country. Now, I've been very open about this. I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis when I was a kid. And it was as a kid, it was debilitating. It would take me 30 to 45 minutes to limber up in the morning. And I was on anti-inflammatories and I was on painkillers and I was all that. And I didn't like the way that the pharmaceuticals made me feel. So against my parents' best wishes and against everybody else's, advice, I went to an herbalist and I said, here's what my diagnosis was. They told me I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 21. And it was homeopathic extracts that put me in clinical remission. So I'm a firm believer in this, but the CDC and more appropriately the FDA would turn around and they would say, "Oh no, that's untested. That's junk science." I'm sorry, I'm living proof that it wasn't the pharmaceuticals which covered the symptoms. It didn't do anything to heal it. Because if you think that the drug industry is out there to actually heal you kids, I hate to break it to you, but you don't make money by eliminating people's problems.
Yeah.
You make them permanently dependent on something that alleviates the symptoms.
Yep.
It doesn't curing an issue. And you'll notice that, like with any of these dietary supplements, anything, this product is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease or illness. And they have to put that on there because if somebody turns around and says, hey, you know what? Hydroxychloroquine is actually, is it hydroxy? No, ivermectin is actually being used right now to treat cancer. Oh, we can't do that because somebody's not making money off of it.
I got at one point, I was on so many prescriptions that I had to be on literally a liver detox pill because my prescriptions were causing me more problems. Like, and when it came to the ADD, when it comes to just my own issues with my body being messed up, I get more relief from a combination of CBD oil, eucalyptus, and tea tree oil than I do from anything that I've gotten from the VA. And that is sad, but they'll push one thing, and I like, thank God for my new doctor. My new doctor doesn't try to push anything on me. He's like, hey, if that's working, keep doing it. If that's what's working and you want to avoid the prescriptions, he goes, I'm a big advocate of that. He goes, that's something we need to change. We need to stop ditching some of these old remedies that worked for literally thousands of years just because we got a new pill to push.
Yep. Well, I mean, listen, pill pushing, the street drug dealers figured it out a long time ago. You make a lot of money when you push drugs, and big pharma, again, that's where does most of the money in Washington, D.C. come from? Lobbying for pharmaceuticals.
You know what? Trump passed a bill requiring every pharmaceutical company to play Pill Poppin' Animal by Lil Wayne. And when they're,
How about this? How about we eliminate drug companies and their ability to market publicly? We're one of the few industrialized nations that actually allow pharmaceutical companies to directly market to the public. You can't go out and buy these drugs. Tell your doctor. Ask your doctor if Wegovy is right for you. That's like going in and telling your car mechanic, this is how I want you to rebuild my engine. If you're so good at it, heal yourself. And you can do that without pharmaceuticals. All right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, Maureen Steele, filmmaker, we're going to be talking about Taken, State-Sanctioned Kidnapping, a world premiere red carpet event coming up on Saturday, September 7th. I'm sorry if it was a Saturday. I don't know. September 7th. For some reason, I just felt the need to insert a Saturday in there. So, Maureen Steele coming up when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
The Spirit of a True Patriot. The inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas Ernest dives into the thrilling and transformative journey of a man who defied the odds to forge his path as a soldier and a businessman. This book is more than an autobiography. It's a call to action. Experience the remarkable story of a man who never takes no for an answer. You can find The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest, on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Look at that. It's so sad.
Great WRKO, Jeff Cooner, Boston's bulldozer. There is going to be a rally to reunite the Rivera family. Let's get the Riveras back together again. They deserve to have custody of their children.
I just got out from the jail right now, and because of losing everything.
All right, welcome back to Granite State Live, 833-603-8255. If you would like to get in on the conversation again, 833-603-8255. Granite State Live at gmail.com is the email address. Let your voice be heard. All right, coming up on September 7th, the Legacy Theater in Massachusetts will host a red carpet world premiere of Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping, described as a searing new documentary exposing the dark underbelly of America's child protective services agencies. Hosted by Boston radio broadcaster Jeff Cooner, the evening will unite activists, journalists, legal experts, and citizens determined to shine a light on one of the most disturbing state-sanctioned abuses of power in our lifetime. At the heart of the film is a story of the Rivera family, a Massachusetts family of 7 whose lives were torn apart when Child Protective Services, armed with fraudulent claims and unchecked authority, ripped their children from their home. Documentary follows the Riveras' harrowing legal battle and unmasks a system where federal dollars incentivize the removal of children, creating a perverse pipeline of state-sanctioned kidnapping. And this is one of the things I have said many, many times before. Whatever you have to do to keep your kids in the home, the last thing that you ever want to do is lose control of your children to these group homes, these residential homes, because I will tell you, I spent time running one of these facilities. I lasted a year before I walked away in absolute disgust, because your children are monetized. And once they go into that system, folks, you will never get them back. Maybe you get back possession of the child, but the child is fundamentally changed. They are not the same person. And then God help you when they start prescribing the psychotropic drugs to these kids. Joining us on the program, Maureen Steele. Maureen, great to have you. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Nice to meet you.
So tell us a little bit more about, first of all, the film Taken, state-sanctioned kidnapping, and you know, this is not an isolated case with the Rivera family. This is something that happens across the country day after day after day. Child Protective Services steps in, ostensibly under the guise, I'll call it that, of protecting the children. They introduce the children into something that oftentimes is far worse than anything that the children were encountering within their legitimate homes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So we, and you seem to be so knowledgeable about this subject, so this will be a good conversation. Some people, this is so new to them. So American Made Foundation, with my partner, Ann Vandersteel, and I, we were alerted to a story, a harrowing story in Massachusetts regarding the Rivera family. Mom and dad together 12 years. They have 5 children. Baby 9 months old, brought him in for a well child visit, 3, 6, 9 months. And they were offered the vitamin K shot, the same vitamin K shot they refused at birth. And this pediatrician told them that if they didn't get it, he was going to report them to DCF in Massachusetts, that they were negligent parents. And the father, Izzy, was just like, do what you got to do. He knew the law was on his side. You can decide if your child gets a shot or not, and they can't do that. Well, CPS, after they got the call, opened up a case, never served the family. There was never a day in court. And but they started getting harassed by CPS saying they wanted to see all 5 children. The Riveras didn't open the door, and eventually they started bringing the police with them. This went on for like 3 weeks. Finally, the family moved. They left their home and they moved to Texas, where they had family and friends. And the CPS in Massachusetts took it upon themselves to call Texas, find them, he was found on a face recognition buying diapers. And 10 police officers in Texas surrounded the home on a loudspeaker, said, "Come out with your hands up." The children were hysterical and crying. Mind you, this was a homeschooled family, all organic food. Both parents worked from home and homeschooled the children. The parents were arrested. The children were ripped from their parents and put on a plane, flown back to Massachusetts. Texas held the parents. Now, there was no felonies. There was no crime. What Massachusetts lied and said was there was familial kidnapping. How do you steal your own children? How do you and your wife steal your own kids? When there was never a hearing where a judge decided the state of Massachusetts had custody of the children, or CPS could take custody of the children. That never happened. So they lied. They falsified documents. The parents were held on $2.5 million bail each. There are murderers and rapists that aren't given, bail like that. After a month, they were sent to Massachusetts, and this is where it gets even weirder. After a $2.5 million bail in Texas for no crime, they're put in a prison in Massachusetts for $7,500 bail for the mother and $25,000 for Izzy, the dad. And their family is not reunited to this day. It has been over 7 months since this family has been together. So the story is absolutely grotesque. It involves the judges, the lawyers, the police. It crosses state lines. It's really an extraordinary story. And I'd love to say it's a one-off, but it is not. I literally have hundreds of these cases in my inbox.
So this is the crux of this that I find so disturbing here is, when you hear communists speak about how the society will be run, there'll be nothing in between you and the state. This is literally the state deciding that it has ownership over your children, your family, that you're just there as caretakers until they decide that they want to do something with your children. And the crazy part is that there are not more people beating down the gates in Massachusetts to rip people out of office allowing this to happen. Nobody should be able to be in office allowing this to happen. And we've seen what happens with CPS and some of these other organizations, DCYF here in New Hampshire, sexual abuse, physical abuse, barbiturates and drugs being pushed, fight clubs, all sorts of crazy stuff.
85% of children that wind up in foster care are sexually or physically abused. And for example, in Massachusetts, just to give perspective, there's 10,000 children. Massachusetts isn't a very big state. There's 10,000 children in the custody of CPS right now. A very good researcher and a friend of mine, Ron Bouchard of We the People group down there, did all the research. 39 out of 10,000 kids were taken legally, lawfully, and for just cause. That's extraordinary. That's not even a 1% success rate. They are trafficking children. This is an $80 billion a year industry. And I was listening to the show prior to getting on air here, and I heard you guys talking about the pharmaceutical industry. 85% of children in foster care are on drugs. As soon as CPS takes them, that's exactly what happens. They load these kids up because the kids are angry, because most of them are taken from good homes.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you from personal experience, having run I've run several facilities. One was a state police facility, another one was a sheriff's department facility, and then one up here in New Hampshire. And I can tell you that the one up here in New Hampshire, which was not a law enforcement sanctioned group home, when we would either do an intake of a kid, and we were taking in kids from Vermont and Massachusetts on something called an interstate compact. But when we would take kids in from any of these facilities, or if we would ship kids out, because generally we were dealing with some of the worst offenders in terms of criminal activity. So generally speaking, they would get shipped out. If we were sending one out, we would send them to a place in Manchester. Everybody here in New Hampshire is very, very well familiar with this. It was the Sununu Center, where they would call YDC. The Sununu Center is, of course, at the center of a multi. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of dollars sexual abuse and physical abuse scandal right now. But that being said, when we would either do an intake or if we would send a kid out to YDC, it would generally involve a pretty extensive chain of custody form for medications for these kids. And I'm talking about handing over a grocery shopping bag filled with pharmaceuticals. And these kids were doing med calls in the morning. They were doing med calls midday. They were doing med calls after dinner, and they were doing med calls at night. And these kids were on a cocktail of SSRIs. They were on Ritalin. They were on Adderall. They were on Paxil. They were on Wellbutrin. They were on, in some instances, Xanax. These kids were going to bed with Ambien. They needed Ambien to chemically knock them out from the cocktail of pharmaceutical sludge that they had been pumped into their bodies, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was absolutely disgusting to see what was happening. In the New Hampshire facility, I lasted a year before I got the hell out, and I started talking about it publicly on my media at that point, because it is state-sanctioned child abuse. And once that child is in the custody of these facilities, I can tell you right now, my facility, each kid in there was worth $328 per day. And that's how it was. And minimal staffing. I was told by the directors, and I mean, I was the director of my facility, but the people that were above me were saying bare bones staffing. And because they had to maximize profits, $328 a day. The subacute facility that was next door to us was about $550 a day. That was a one-on-one ratio. And these kids were out of control. Didn't matter. What mattered was the price tag associated with each kid and the price on their head. Then. And that was going back 2015, 2016. So I mean, it's only gone up at this point. Oh, and then we get into the breakfast and the lunch and the reimbursement dollars, from the federal government, because we're giving these kids breakfast and we're giving these kids lunch. So $328 a day was what they were worth to the state, and then add on probably an extra $100 a day in reimbursements for breakfast and lunch. It's a cash cow. And when people start looking, and these are all nonprofits, by the way, most of these facilities are nonprofits, and they can't show a profit. So they're paying $150,000, $200,000 salaries to people on boards of directors who have never seen the insides of these facilities. They're all driving brand new cars. They've all got really, really nice houses, and they've never seen the inside of these facilities because they are making so much money off of these kids. It's disgusting.
And this is an exact case of what happens when the vast majority of people aren't influenced by something. It goes ignored until it slaps you in the face, and it's your kid, or it's your family, or it's your neighbor.
Yep. I'm sorry to go off on a rant like that, but this is something that I haven't discussed in a long time, Maureen, and it's something that people need to see. They need to see what these facilities are like. They need to know what goes on in these facilities, and they need to know that there is no care. There is no care. Oh, we're going to provide a psychiatric program for your kid. Bullshit. You're not providing anything. You can't get into psychological care for a child when that child is in a group therapy session with 12 other kids that can't settle down because they're all behavioral issues. There's no therapy that's going on. And the therapist, it's like, well, where the hell did you get you're a therapist. Where did you get your therapy license? A Cracker Jack box? And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic, because I watched what was going on, and it was an abomination.
It is. It's tragic. And, a society can be judged by how they treat their children and their elders. And I think the United States is failing in a big way. We are allowing our children to be trafficked. And so parents really need to be aware to keep your kids out of the system. I have a lot of friends that are teachers. They're sat down every year at the beginning of every school year and told that they're mandatory reporters, and that they will lose their job. They will get fired. They will get sued if they even suspect. If a kid comes in your classroom with a bruise, you've got to report it. Mm-hmm. So this is just hearsay. And this is what CPS is acting off of, and this is what's destroying family. Just a vindictive neighbor doesn't like that you move the fence, and so they're going to call CPS on you. Make something up, and CPS comes in, takes your kids. Your kids are gone for a year minimum, if you're lucky. If you're not so lucky, you'll never see your kids again. They'll be raped, they'll be drug addicts. Your child, like you said earlier, is gone, unrecognizable. These kids are so traumatized. There's hundreds of thousands of these cases happening all over the country. The United States, when Mike Pompeo was Secretary of State, every year the Secretary of State does a missing persons report for the president. In 2019, Mike Pompeo stated that the number one supplier of children into sex slavery is the foster care system in the United States. And that's where these family law, judges, they're in on it, the cops, the sheriffs, they're all part of it. They're all breaking the law. They're nothing but criminals themselves. And CPS is a crime syndicate. They are stealing children left and right. And there's no due process for these parents in these courts at all. There's no innocence till proven guilty. The Chevron deference, which was overturned by the Supreme Court last year in July of 2024, that said that these agencies can no longer make law, they can no longer interpret law, and you judges, you can no longer rubber stamp what they say anymore. And the judges ignore it and CPS ignores it, and they just continue on business as usual. If there's one agency in this country that needs to be demolished, and demolished first, I think CPS is it. We need to protect our children. We need to protect our families. You destroy the American family, you destroy the backbone of a country. And we're seeing, with the divorce rates in the 80s, all of that escalating, mothers being encouraged to leave the home, like being a mother was a waste of your time and a waste of your brain, when what could be more important than raising a human being? And they took our children, and then they introduced the phones, and suddenly parents, we're both working, no one has time, and the biggest influence on your kids is their peers and phones and their teachers, and they've slowly but surely succeeded in their plan. But it's time to reverse it, and so that's our crusade.
So, Maureen, I want to play devil's advocate here for a second because, I've been in various facets of law enforcement throughout my entire career. And so I have definitely been in situations where I have seen firsthand children being abused. No question about it. And so there is the need to act. And not every interaction with CPS is nefarious or is motivated by revenge or, one parent playing another. There are instances where mandated reporters have identified very serious situations. CPS workers have gone to the house, they've identified a serious situation, and they have removed that child from the home for legitimate reasons. So how do we, but then again, also you look at it from the standpoint of we have a process of due process in this country. And I would certainly not advocate for a red flag law in the case of firearms where somebody now says, oh, Julian Aciard, I don't like his politics, so I'm going to report that I think he's crazy, he's going to hurt himself, he's got a bunch of guns, and now without due process, he has his firearm seized. Similarly, we don't want to have a situation where somebody can maliciously and malevolently report another parent, and now those children are removed from the home without due process. How do we find some type of system or process, or what would you suggest that would bridge that gap, that would respect the rights of the parents, that would preserve due process, but would also provide the protections that in many instances the children actually need?
Right. And I think I don't have all the answers, but I know General Flynn, he has an organization, America's Future, and they do have a solution if a CPS is abolished so that we don't leave a vacuum, because like you said, that would be like the worst possible thing. But what CPS tries to have people convinced of is that there's hundreds of thousands of kids getting abused. They're right about that, but it's CPS and their organizations and organizations like you worked for, the Sununu Center, that are doing most of the abuse. So it's not parents. It's a rare case. Like I just said, 10,000 kids in CPS custody in Massachusetts, 39 are legit. Mm-hmm. That's extraordinary. That's flabbergasting. So, no parents are perfect. You all have a bad night once in a while. You lose your temper once in a while. But it doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't mean your child should be ripped from your home and subjected to abuse. 85% of kids in foster care are abused. And that's the other thing. They're violating the law. I have dealt with so many cases where they don't even look for a family member. And that's right in their credo, that if there's a family member member available to take these kids, that's where they go. And they don't even look for it. In fact, they lie on the court documents, which is a federal crime, saying we couldn't find a family member to take the kids. When grandparents will come into court, aunts, uncles, saying, I would have taken them. I was never even called. And the judges do nothing. They don't press charges and on these social workers. And that's who's doing it. CPS it's a crime syndicate.
To be honest, I think we need to get to the point in America where we remove the government from every facet of interfering with the family. We are at the point now where we have watched the government kidnap people. We've watched the government destroy people's lives, imprison people, take people's rights. If the government says that you're guilty regardless of whether you are or not. And I see absolutely not a single data point that shows me that the government is a better custodian of your children, whether in school or at CPS, in a hospital, in any case or scenario, than the parents of the child. Like, literally
Absolutely.
none. That's such...
Right.
Yes. And
you
that's
know,
the
and
problem.
they just sidestep that. They completely sidestep, due process and unalienable rights. You have a right to parent your child. But like you said earlier, they are, through adhesion contracts, they see themselves as the custodian, and you're just the caretaker. You can just pay the bills, but when they decide they want to pull that child, they're going to do it. And they've got judges in their back pockets that are getting greased. This is an $80 billion a year industry. They've got cops, they've got sheriffs, and everyone's looking the other way. It's really a disgusting thing, and it needs to be stopped, and it needs to be exposed. And so that's what Taken is all about. It's a shocking story. It could be you tomorrow. It was the Riveras 7 months ago. But this is happening every single day in family courts, where the Constitution it's not even a shadow in those courts.
And this is the bastardized problem that we're dealing with, is the manipulation of people who have well-meaning hearts and souls to get them to fill this entire industry of kidnapping children and putting them into this. I'm going to read you this. Of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under the omnipotent moral busybodies. That's C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, the do-gooders that do no good at all. Yep. Yeah, they're criminals themselves, and that's what's so extraordinary. Most of these CPS workers are 22-year-olds fresh out of college with their social worker degree and their clipboard and checking the boxes, and taking these families. And I've videotaped them. I've recorded them. They are so smug and so arrogant because they know they are untouchable. They have complete immunity because the laws, the statutes are written. If they suspect, and it's reasonable to suspect, well, who decides if it's reasonable? A judge, and the judge is getting greased. So this is the system we're in.
The worst thing you could do is put somebody who knows nothing, has no life experience, and in a position of authority where they think they are morally superior to everybody that they are supposed to be serving.
100%.
Well, the problem is that when you're working for the state, you are morally superior in your own eyes, because now I have the opportunity to engage in what I'm doing with immunity and impunity. And so, one of the things too is, as a high liability trainer in law enforcement, we're consciously aware and constantly reminding people that when you are operating with arguably government authority, you are subject to civil actions under 42 U.S. Code Section 1983, which is deprivation of constitutionally protected rights. And so if you do have, and there's also called a Monell claim, which the Monell claim is a claim that is brought against agencies, not against individuals. So the 1983 suit is against individuals, and the Monell claim is brought against agencies that those individuals represent or work for, if those agencies are training people to violate constitutional rights, or if they are creating and habitualizing a culture that would lead to a deprivation of constitutionally protected rights. So I think the bottom line is that I think people need to start aggregating instances where their families or their children have been victimized by overzealous CPS agents, and start utilizing those 1983 suits.
Absolutely, and we're launching one actually against CPS in Massachusetts that took the Rivera family's children and destroyed that family. And one of the other things that they do is they give you all these hoops you have to jump through and all these classes you have to take that cost thousands of dollars, even though these agents or these organizations that are providing these classes are getting paid by the federal government and the state, and then you have to pay them yourself. No one's incentivized to get you out of the system. It's totally leaning on keeping you in there because that's the big payday. But all of these people are absolutely breaking the law and depriving people of rights. They're just trained to check boxes and they're told what they're doing is right. So I think you're spot on, but we are bringing the lawsuits. American Made Action is our C4. We have American Made Foundation. The Action, we have DOJA, the Department of Government Accountability. And underneath that, we have the United Law Coalition. We have over 1,000 attorneys throughout the country that are in that, poised with their pen to go after these bad actors, to go after these judges, to go after these agencies that are depriving people of rights under color of law. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to be going after these people personally and professionally. And so there's a big rude awakening coming right now in Massachusetts. We're going after CPS and the judge in this case. So it's going to be quite extraordinary. I think this case is going to, make national headlines because this hasn't happened before. New Hampshire's next, by the way.
Good.
It's about time. I mean, it really
New
is.
Hampshire is one of the most corrupt states in the country. I deal with CPS all over the place, and one of the most corrupt states in the nation is New Hampshire. The good old boy network there is alive and well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't know the half of it.
I mean, that's
it's absolutely.
Oh, but I do. I went to West
true.
High School, Blue Knights, rah rah rah. Grew up in Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm a New Hampshire girl, born and raised. Oh well.
I think the confluence and what I want everybody to understand who's watching right now is a legitimate conspiracy is concocted between very few people, and it trusts in everybody else to act in their own self-interest or what they perceive to be their own self-interest, whether ideological, financial, personal advancement, so on and so forth. We have a system that has been created by very few people with a goal, and the system has its own perverse incentives and thrives on everybody else's omnipotent self-righteousness complex.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're right there. Yeah, it's a power play, and I just wrote an article on this. Actually, the psychopaths in government and people that seek power like that usually have a psychopathy, and so it's very true. I mean, we're in a sick system, and we've got to abolish it, and we've got to start over, get these people out.
Maureen Steele, we're just about out of time. We're coming up on the top of the hour here. What time does that premiere start? September 7th, 2025, Legacy Theater.
Yeah, it's this Sunday. So it's at the Legacy Theater in Dedham. It starts at 6. There's a VIP reception from 6 to 6:30, and the movie starts at 7. So we'd love as many people as possible to get there. Tickets can be found on AmericanMadeFoundation.org website. You cannot buy tickets at the door; they're off the website. But it's an important documentary for parents, grandparents to see because it could be you tomorrow.
All right, and that's what town is that in? Legacy Theater.
It's in Dedham.
Dedham. Okay. All right. Perfect. Just want to make sure that we have all the information so we can get that up on the social media feeds. Maureen Steele, filmmaker of Taken State-Sanctioned Kidnapping. I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening, and best of luck in all of your endeavors, and I hope the turnout is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Much more of Granite State Live when we come back. We're going to be checking in with Wayne Morrow, the CEO of the John Birch Society. We're going to be talking about the Minneapolis shooting. Are you tired about hearing this or tired of hearing about this yet? This is going to be an interesting conversation, and I think we need to start shaking things up, especially when it comes to this whole trans agenda. This is out of control. People are dying. The left are, they're searching for reasons, and guess what the reason is, folks? An overabundance of guns. Well, we'll challenge that certainly when Granite State Live continues after this. Don't go away.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Like the best of me. Maybe I found my remedy. Come on. I've been beating a drum.
All right, so I gotta ask our illustrious producer, what is it with this? Like, what is this genre of music that we're listening to tonight?
It's called Fulton Lee.
It's called what?
The gentleman is called Fulton Lee.
Fulton Lee.
Yeah, and he, it's freestyle jazz.
Freestyle jazz. Okay, I didn't know there was a genre of freestyle jazz.
Yeah, it's something like that.
So okay, it's different.
It's what a Puerto Rican will listen to.
It's wow. Okay,
white Puerto Rican.
I thought it was all Daddy Yankee. Blah blah blah. Gasolina. Give me the gasoline. Whatever that is.
Here's Daddy Yankee.
Reggaeton.
Yeah. Move that ass. That's Daddy Yankee.
Is that move that ass? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Juan, the producer, with his rendition of Daddy Yankee's "Move That Ass."
That's all he talks about
on GraniteGrok. Yeah, there we go. Hey, Steve, this is what you're reduced to. Juan talking about asses. All right. Is it this segment that we have Wayne on? That would make sense, wouldn't it? Yeah, because
there he is.
There he is. Look at that. Wayne Morrow, Chief Executive Officer of John Birch Society. I think what we need to do is we need to medicate these transsexuals, transgenders, and we need to give them all guns and just let the problem work itself out. I don't know. Wayne Morrow, CEO of John Birch Society.
Yeah, hi.
Should we do this?
Let's lock them in a stadium with each other first, though.
Yeah. Well, what did you expect? They went sideways, and most of the shootings, matter of fact, most of them, all of them, have been transgens people have gone bad. I mean, they've kind of lost, and that's really they really don't point to that. They blame the guns and this or that. We have a magazine called the New American Magazine. It kind of looks like this on live. I can show you this. It looks like this. Comes out once a month, and it's newamerican.com. And we wrote an article about Minneapolis Shooting has a left-wing rhetoric claim more lives? ? And you go to the guy's website and he says, where's your God? And I don't, it's just he had some problems, and his mom has a lawyer now, and so she was at fault. She must have knew the kid had guns, and he was an issue. So, all of a sudden he loses it, goes back to his old school, and kills, unfortunately, some innocent kids. And all of a sudden the guns are to blame, And it's really a messed up society which promotes transgens. I mean, it's not only immoral, it's satanic. So what do you expect? And unfortunately, good people get hurt because politicians and the wrong agenda goes wild.
Well, I mean, we have the Annunciation Catholic school shooting committed by a transgender. Covenant school shooting committed by a transgender. And one of the things I am going to ask you to do, excuse me, if you would please, is when we're talking about these, let's please refer to the instances not by the name of the perpetrator. We do adhere to the don't name them. And we encourage people, check out don'tnamedem.org, because these degenerate scumbags do not deserve, in death or incarceration, the dignity of having their names used. So we'll refer to the instances. Annunciation, transgender. Covenant School, transgender. STEM School, Highlands Ranch in 2019, transgender. Uvalde, transgender. Now, I have been, since 2008, I have been a federal tactical counterterrorism instructor, active shooter response instructor. I'm a train the trainer for the alert programs, advanced law enforcement rapid response training, exterior response to active shooter events, SWORD, sole officer rapid deployment, all those good things, multiple assault counterterrorism action capability. And one of the things that we talk about internally very, very significantly is the prevalence in selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors with the people who are engaging and perpetrating these actions. To the point now where it's above 90% of the people that are responsible for mass shootings in this country have had an extensive history of being medicated with SSRIs. Now you look at this transgender issue, and I see this as the intersection of three concepts. Number one is the normalization of deviant and immoral behavior. Number two, it's the removal of God from our society and having any understanding or consciousness of what is right and what is wrong. And number three, it is the overprescription of psychiatric medications, specifically SSRIs. And then we have the balls to sit back and clutch our pearls in shock when these three things come together and produce what we see on, I'm not going to say on an increasing basis, because I think the narrative that it's increasing is a manipulation of data by unscrupulous media outlets. But what we do see now are some pretty significant commonalities and some potential root causes that need to be looked at. And your feelings be damned. I don't care if you feel like I'm being insensitive to you because you think because you've got a penis that you're a woman. No, I'm concerned about the cocktail of drugs that these young minds are being given, and then the unintended consequences or the secondary or tertiary psychiatric end results of medicating children to this degree.
I'm going to add one more thing to that. This matriarchal feminist culture of validation and affirmation ultimately leading to this idea that we have to just accept the idea that you can identify as whatever the hell you want whenever, and that we just tell everybody, yes, you are right. You deserve to feel that way, when you should be telling these kids no.
Well, that's exactly against the Bible's plan of patriarchal families. So you're exactly right. But that's been done on purpose, guys. I mean, it's when we talk about the Bird Society, it's part of the plan to disrupt society, destroy morality, which would mean more masters, more government, more control. And that's kind of what we're at. By the way, you guys are in New Hampshire. I lived 29 years in New Hampshire.
Oh, what part?
I live in Concord and Canterbury.
Oh, okay. Well, as one Granite Stater to another, it's still a great place to be. I mean, despite the influx of Massachusetts people, it's still a good place to be.
Yeah. So I know the state well. Matter of fact, we had a governor, Meldrum Thompson, was a member of the Bird Society when I lived there. He was on our council.
Excellent. We need we need more, I think. And I was a member of John Birch Society when I was in high school, believe it or not. So it's the ideals and the values that are expressed by the John Birch Society, I think is something. And it was not trendy to be a John Birch Society member. But they have literally become the building blocks of my adult life, the values that are espoused by the John Birch Society, and the concepts of freedom and the concepts of liberty and the concepts of conservatism, and self-reliance, and these are things that make strong people and build strong men and build strong families. And this is something that, again, the left doesn't want strong men. The left doesn't want a strong patriarchy. Of course, it's, smash the patriarchy. They don't want strong families, because when you have strong men and strong families, you don't need the oppressive hand of government in every single phase of your life.
Very, very true. One of the things that we wrote here, it's one of our, we have these little pamphlets for people that says, it speaks to what we're talking about. It says this: freedom cannot exist without morality. The idea of immoral free people makes more sense than dry water. Without sufficient character and moral fortitude, we can't govern ourselves. When morality declines, that we're seeing, the abuse of rights increases and more government is necessary, just as criminals need jailers, domestic animals need herdsmen. Immoral citizens need more police state. If we ever abandon our morality, we lose our freedom. And that's kind of where we're at there. That's the example you gave me about what's going on. This is one of the planks, And I think people have to wake up. It's all done on purpose to destroy our United States from within. And this is one of the planks.
Well, if you can you see your screen? I mean, obviously you're on a screen. I don't know if you can see the video feed or not. I'm going to ask Juan if you could to throw up the graphic. I think it was a tweet that we opened the show with, and Julian had alluded to this. We can pull this up.
All right. Which one?
The one, how do you destroy a society in one generation? If you have that one. This is, I think it's pretty interesting, and I kind of reserved comment on this because I wanted to wait until your segment here, Wayne. But I think this is really, really important stuff, and it's good stuff, and it's something that we're seeing more and more and more of. Guide to Destroying the West. Number one, convince women to hate men. We are certainly seeing that. There's no question about it. You don't need a man. All you need is a turkey baster and a check from the government, and you can have your family. Convince men to hate themselves. Of course, if you are a white, middle-aged Christian man, you are the source. You are the oppressor, period, end of story. Don't even bother trying to defend yourself against it. Convince minorities to hate whites? Absolutely, because white people are, of course, the source of all oppression. Convince whites to hate themselves. Again, and I think that's one of the reasons why you saw such a backlash and the support for Trump, because young kids, 21, 22, 23, 24 years old, are sick and tired of being told that they are the source of all of society's problems. Convince the young to be LGBTQIA LMNOP? Absolutely. It's trendy to be gay. It's trendy to be bisexual. It's trendy to be a tranny. And if you're a woke parent, well, then you know what? Then you symbolize and virtue signal through putting your children through these grotesque Frankenstein-esque transitional processes. Convince the old that they are backwards. We are one of the few societies that does not hold in high respect, regard, and reverence people who have been there before. Now it's, oh, okay, boomer. No, F you, because the people who have been there have learned it. They understand it. It's always interesting when you see these young people embracing communism, trying to convince people who are in their 50s and 60s they know more about communism than the people who actually lived through it.
I'm going to
That's
add,
true.
and I'm going to add a little bit of nuance with this because we saw this during the Kamala Harris campaign. There has been, over the past 60 years since the Civil Rights Movement, a massive wave of matriarchal misandry coming from the black intellectual class on the left, to the point where they literally told black men to shut up and sit down and vote like a black woman this entire last election cycle. And it's not new. They've been doing it for the past 4 election cycles. So it's not new. They've been doing it with everybody. It's anything that exhibits a divine masculine framework for society, for the home, they need to get rid of.
It's toxic, right?
Yeah. They've done it in churches too. I've seen the matriarchal push within churches to accept and laud and push feminism, even though it's directly contradictory to scripture.
Absolutely right. Well, but again, that's all done by plan. You know, it's all done by plan. You know, and that's. But I tell you, as I travel around the United States, a couple of things that I just want to share with you guys, because I see all different folks, all different parts of the United States, west, east, south, doesn't make a difference. And I know we have an election coming up, and I know my old state of my kids grew up in good old New Hampshire. Live free or die, not live free and die, by the way. Anyway, they used to laugh. We said, "Welcome to New Hampshire, go home." Remember, we used to say that when they crossed the border. When I do the polls, I ask people this question, guys. When's the last time you read the U.S. Constitution? And I get 2%. I don't care if it's Tea Party people, Republican, conservative, veteran, 2%. Then I ask the other question. When's the last time you read your state constitution? It's usually 0.
Yep.
Now I ask the question, because it's going to come back to what we're talking about. So how do you elect your state legislators? Is it a popularity contest? Is it like looking at a Valentine's card? Based on what? If you don't know the rule book, based on what? How do you hold them accountable? And the reason why we've got our society going sideways, you mentioned it, I mean, we see it as well, is that, first of all, men haven't become men, although that's changing as I see the trend, believe it or not. And that's what I see. Guys are tired of it. But, you know, you have to have a basis to operate from our constitutional principles. I mean, back in New Hampshire, I live in the South. I live in a colony as well. That's our colonies, and we have strong historical bent. I mean, we have to have respect of men who died before us to give us freedom. They froze to death. They died. Our fellow founding fathers gave it all for us. And we've been blessed with a wonderful country. And why hand it over? So we teach American principles. And once people understand Americanism, the garbage we've been talking about doesn't happen because people stand up and the family goes, no, this is not going to happen this way. And I think you've been saying this as weak husbands, weak parents, weak fathers have been a cause of this because they've been beat down, told, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. This isn't correct. And I'm telling you, I'm seeing a change of that. I'm seeing a change with younger men, and I'm seeing a change with older men who have scar tissues. They say, I don't need my kids to go sideways and go backwards. So I'm seeing that trend in the United States. You may not think it's fast enough, but I'm seeing that happen. And we've been teaching and promoting Americanism, and people are embracing it because the election's coming up, and they don't want to lose Congress because then we go back to square one again we just came from, right?
Yeah. I think the pinnacle of what people are missing when it comes to the concept of a patriarchal society, and it goes back to biblical scripture, is the reason why the man is the head of the household, the reason why it's a patriarchal society is because men have a responsibility to prioritize protection and duty over everything else. It is your ability to provide, to protect, to give structure, discipline, accountability, wisdom, character. Everything about being a man is about duty. We're there to protect society, to protect our children, to protect our wives. It is not there to lord over people. It's not there to victimize people. It is there to be the divine example of masculinity that God calls us to be. And we commonly, the trope is that we use the top 1% of pseudo-elite bastards who do victimize society to castigate the vast majority, the 99.999% of good men in society who are trying to do the right thing daily.
And it's also leading by example. It's leading by example, and that's something that it's hypocritical to turn around and say, well, this is how you have to live and to raise your children a certain way, and to turn around but not live that creed, and to walk that line. You have to live by example and lead by example, because your kids are going to recognize it. So you're telling me to do this. Remember the public service message. What is this? Then he finds the drugs in the room. Who taught you to do this? You. I learned it from watching you. You can't tell your kids to do one thing and then turn around and do something else. You have to lead by example, and that's the problem. Is that we live in a society where people don't understand what their roles are, and what it means to actually be a strong, ethical, moral human being. Mm-hmm. And I spent years. This is going back. I spent several years as the Florida State chapter president of Oath Keepers, back when Oath Keepers actually was an organization that represented something. So when I would travel around the state of Florida, I would open my speeches. We would do a prayer, and we would do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would hearken to a line in the Pledge of Allegiance. I would say, "What a beautiful creed that is!" And we talk about it. We talk about liberty and justice for all. And of course, Oath Keepers being an organization for currently serving in retired law enforcement, I would ask people, how many times have you ever arrested a person who was asserting that it's a free country and they can do what they want? And you'd hear that all the time. Okay, so if we live in a free country, then why don't we say that? Why don't we say with freedom and justice for all? We don't say that. We say liberty. And then I would pose the question, what's the difference between freedom and liberty? And it was always interesting to see what the responses that I would get. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between freedom and liberty? And the difference is the responsible exercise of freedom. Mm-hmm. I don't need laws to constrain or prescribe behavior because my own moral and ethical code says I can't engage in this behavior because it violates the inherent natural rights of my fellow man. And I am a responsible person. Right. Live free or die, remember? Live free or die. Which there's a lot of people that want to do away with that motto because they think that's it's violent and it espouses a violent revolutionary rhetoric. You're goddamn right it does.
Yeah, that's what this country was built on, by a bunch of pirates and bastards and criminals and rebels. That's the crux of what it means to be an American. Yeah. Live free or die. Yep. Death is not the worst of all evils.
I do want to get into one thing here, Wayne, and that was, the subject that we're going to have you on is the left-wing rhetoric claiming more lives. So I want to dive into that here real quick. What do you see as the left-wing rhetoric that is actually responsible for, really, for fostering an environment which is costing people lives?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we did an article about, it went through this, it says that we totally agree. The left-wing activists say burning Teslas and protesting Elon Musk is correct. Killing the two Israeli ambassador staffers, that's exactly what they deserve. I'm reading some of the comments that I came across. Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, she was on the Examiner, and she was going through the whole bit about hatred for Trump, and really what it is, and the LGBTQ trender flags and all that good stuff, and people wearing shirts, protect trans kids, and all that was going. That was their rhetoric, is blaming who was in the right, not on the left, not really what was going on. That was their rhetoric. You have to. The reason why this happened because of me and you and Julian. That's the reason why it happened. It's got nothing to do with where they are. They have to blame somebody, and they'll blame Trump and the MAGA movement for it. That's exactly what I'm reading is. Of course, guns are the culprit. We got to get rid of the guns, and you guys all know when you get rid of guns, history goes, and then so goes slavery right after that. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We know the game, right? We know the game.
Oh, we know the game because we see it all the time. And as a matter of fact, so there's a social media organization, Reddit, if you're familiar with that. And there was a conversation about this, and I have the screenshot of this, where somebody, of course, an anonymous person posts the comment, I hate to say this, but targeting white Christian churches may be the only way to get real gun reform and legislation. Nothing else is working.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the burn a lot of churches lately, aren't they? In France and England as well as the United States, Canada.
But I mean, specifically here, okay, because they're counting on it, at least the left. I mean, what is ostensibly being expressed here, Wayne, is that if these radical, I'm not going to call them revolutionaries. I'm just going to call them criminals. If these radical criminals decide to target more churches, then maybe the white conservative Christian crowd is going to turn around and say, hey, you know what? Maybe our safety is more important than the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's possible. Although I live in the South, so, you have a lot of kindred brothers who hold on to weapons. I guarantee that one. They know that's a trick, so that's not going to happen. Depends on where you go in the United States,
Well, I think in light of this, I think in light of the sentiments that have been expressed on multiple social media platforms, I have a very, very simple solution for this. From this point forward, we make it part of the NICS check that if you have been involved in any transgendered activism, if you are in any phase or facet of living your life as a transgendered person, or if you are taking any type of hormone blockers, puberty blockers, or if you are subject to any type of transgender surgeries, you are hereby prohibited from purchasing, owning, possessing, or having transferred into your possession any firearms of any kind. Simple, easy, done. If you can prohibit felons from possessing firearms, we prohibit any person involved in any aspect of transgender activism from possessing, using, owning, discharging, or having transferred into their possession firearms. This will do two things. Number one, it'll actually cause the left to turn around and start defending Second Amendment rights, which is always interesting to watch them backpedal and have to defend policies that they outspokenly advocated for the abolition of.
Right. And you hope somebody doesn't buy somebody the weapon, hand it to them, right?
Listen, if it's so simple that we can just ban devices and we can, you watch the left in states that banned abortion. Well, go ahead and ban abortion. We're just going to go and get one. Okay, well, you know what? Gun bans don't do anything because the same mindset that fuels a person to go get an illegal abortion is going to go fuel a person to go get an illegal gun if they are not allowed to possess one. So it's a tendentious argument without a patina of credibility.
That's what was mentioned earlier about freedom can't exist without morality. And that's kind of where it's at, responsibility.
Well, I think the bottom line is that people need to, number one, purchase a firearm. Number two, go out and actually get quality training. And I'm not talking USCCA or NRA bullshit. Actually get firearms training from somebody who's qualified to train people on defensive firearms tactics. And then you carry that firearm and you make a vow to yourself that anything that threatens the safety and well-being of your family, if it involves the unlawful use of aggressive deadly force, then you respond in kind and you shoot the bastards dead. That's how we solve this problem.
Yeah. You sure you don't live in the South?
I did for 10 years, so.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm an honorary card-carrying Southerner, so.
Okay. But I was saying, like I said, New Hampshire people are the same way. But, I keep on saying this, is that I know where you guys live, but I see as I travel the United States, of course, it depends on what state, I'm seeing a trend back to it's cool to be a man, and they're pushing back on the gender mentality. And I see it in the young men, because the young guys are back in church, and they're really tired of it all. And I'm seeing 20, 30, 25-year-old guys saying, hey, like they've been calling the Birch Society, we want to know more about Americanism because we're tired of being the victim. That's not me. I'm not gay. I'm straight. It's okay. I'm cool. I go to the gym and all, but this is exactly this is me. This is not who, and we're tired of this. I'm seeing as the young guys are training, and I'm seeing older adults seeing the negative ways of the mass media. But, I know we've been talking about, the shooting, but as I travel the U.S. again, it's a small percentage. I'd say 90% of the people I meet along the way are just good folks, want to live their lives in freedom and not have a government intrusion in their lives. Much like where you live back at home, live for your die. This is the kind of people I see. I have lunch with, I go to their houses, and they just can't get it. So I was going back to my original comment, that why do you have lousy politicians? And the reason for it, because they don't know the Constitution, and they elect them as a Valentine's card. And I said, we got to make sure you keep people accountable by having their voting record and say, hey, look, we're watching you. And if you don't uphold the Constitution, we'll find somebody else.
Well,
and
term limits.
We the people get involved in the process, you're going to get mediocre representatives. That's kind of where it's at.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big problem too is that people look at the Constitution as a roadblock. They don't look at it as a set of, for lack of a better term, guardrails. These are the parameters within which you operate. And people, and again, this boils down to education and the sum total of public education in this country. That people don't understand that the Constitution is not there to put constraints on the people. The Constitution exists to put constraints on the government.
Yes.
And of course, no politician wants to operate with constraints. They want to look at their position as an elected official and say, I am your overlord. And that's what we have to, as an American society, fundamentally reject, which is one of the reasons why, and Julian doesn't like this, I call bullshit on every politician that's out there, because I have interviewed hundreds of politicians, from presidential candidates to state Senate candidates to U.S. Senate candidates and gubernatorial candidates, and they all stand in front of me and tell me the same thing. If I'm elected, I'm going to do this. Bullshit. Prove it. What in your background proves that you're actually a person of honor and integrity? And I got to tell you, the vast majority of people that are running for public office have no honor, have no integrity. They want the money, they want the fame, and they want to cement the future for their posterity. That's why they want to get involved in politics.
Imagine if every election cycle, the 34.7% of people who did not vote, who actually just want to be left alone, showed up and voted so that we could be left alone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we fight that complacency all the time. And they think, well, it can't make a difference. That's exactly what the game's all about. They don't want you to participate. And so we encourage them all the time on jbs.org to go to our website to learn about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and get people involved in the process. I can say this, if you're not involved in the process, you get the politician you deserve.
Yep. No, you're 100% correct. Wayne, we are unfortunately out of time. jbs.org is the website. jbs.org. Wayne Morrow, Chief Executive Officer of the John Birch Society. God bless you, my friend. You're welcome on anytime you want.
Thank you, my fellow New Hampshireites. God bless you guys.
All right. Live free or die, baby.
You got it, baby. Thank you.
All right, take care, Wayne. Thank you again. All right, going to take a very, very quick commercial break. When we come back, we have Garland Favorito. We're going to talk about President Trump's initiatives to secure American elections. Garland is the co-founder of an organization, Voters, which breaks down to Voters Organized for Trusted Election Results in Georgia. He's done a tremendous amount of research into electronic voting systems. We're going to talk about how to secure these elections when Granite State Live continues. Don't go away.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
Welcome back to Granite State Live, the Bali Elephant Cam. That's in Bali, Indonesia. That's very. Where are you getting these live webcams, Juan?
Right, American media has eyes everywhere. Eyes and ears everywhere.
So I'm not seeing any elephants.
Hold on.
I'm not seeing any.
To that.
Okay.
Somebody's watching me.
How about this? Let's see. Oh, there you go.
Oh wow, the Critter Cam in Webster, New York.
Webster, New York.
We got some rabbits. It's good.
Let's see.
Cool. What else we got? Yeah, it's the Zion Summit Cam in Duck Creek Village, Utah. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Very nice. And the Naples Pier is very dark. Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Very nice. Live. That's pretty cool.
And here's the light.
Lake Michigan Cam. We should have a Chicago Cam. We should just watch.
Actually, there was a Chicago Cam somewhere here. Here's Times Square.
Times Square. Okay.
New York. Let's see.
It's New York. Okay.
And get to Chicago real quick. Oh.
Whitesboro.
Did they shoot the camera?
Whitesboro, Texas. Yeah. Mystic, Connecticut.
There you go.
Chicago, Illinois. Notice it's an elevated camera because they don't want you to actually have a ground floor view of what's happening.
Exactly.
It's going to be interesting here when Trump decides to dump ICE officials into Chicago.
You're going to see on the south side of Chicago, they're welcoming it.
Oh, I know they are.
Yeah,
because they're fed up with it.
Yeah.
And after I forgot how many shootings and how many murders that they had this past weekend, city officials in Chicago saying, "No, we don't need any assistance here because we got this.
Yeah.
We got a handle on our situation here in Chicago." No, quite to the contrary. You don't. And again, one of the things we were talking about here with Wayne from the John Birch Society was, again, the need to elect good, solid, constitutional, law-minded representatives. And remember, we don't call them, at least I don't, and I never have been in the habit of calling these people leaders because they're not leaders. They are representatives. They are elected to represent their constituents in legislative bodies that the constituents don't have the ability to speak up in. So you elect people to be stewards of your best interest. And certainly in Chicago, they're failing. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you happen to check this out or not, but J.B. Pritzker deciding to get in the treadmill and drop a couple of pounds because he's going to be hitting the campaign trail in 2028. It's going to be J.B. Pritzker, and you're also going to see Gavin Newsom, who's going to be out there as well, too, thinking that somehow, some way, his ability to single-handedly destroy the state of California qualifies him to occupy the highest elected office in the United States. God help us all.
All right, up next, we have Garland Favorito to discuss the Trump initiatives to secure American elections. Garland is a career information technology professional with 40 years of experience. He's devoted much of his career to computer programming, business systems analysis, data administration, and internet systems design and architecture, as well as systems development methodology. He is a co-founder of Voters Organize for Trusted Election Results in Georgia. That's Vote GA, Vote Georgia. Garland did volunteer research into the electronic voting systems. He also serves as a volunteer elections director for the Constitution Party of Georgia. Hello, sir. Thank you for coming on. I'm so glad that you're here, but I gotta throw a bomb for a moment because I worked on election integrity up here in New Hampshire, along with many other people. As a matter of fact, we're sitting in the studio of a guy who is pinnacle in fighting for election integrity in New Hampshire. And as much as I care about election integrity, one of the biggest things that really chaps my ass is the apathy that rules the conservative right and plagues America, because to be honest, I have yet to see a level of cheating that could surpass the 34.7% of people who don't vote showing up to the polls instead of waiting for the rest of us that do to save America. But thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks, Julian. Good to be with you and Keith this evening. I also, I'm very close with Wayne down here in Georgia. He's down here with me, and we know each other really well. I was just in New Hampshire last week, just passing through. But I think the part of that, the 34.7% that you've mentioned, some of this issue is that voting, the people just don't trust the voting systems. Mm-hmm. And the reason they don't trust the voting systems, if you think about it for a minute, we conduct secretly counted elections using secret proprietary software, and then we secretly preserve the ballots so that no one can ever verify the results. So they just tell us who won, and we're supposed to believe it. Mm-hmm. Now, no one in their right mind would think that that's a legitimate way to conduct elections, but in most states, that's exactly what is done. So one of the things that's pretty exciting that President Trump has stated he's going to lead the initiative to get rid of voting systems, which are unverifiable, and we can go into great detail about that, as well as a lot of the fraud that occurred in mail-in voting. So we're pretty excited that Trump has said that he's going to lead that movement. We've known that that's going to be coming for some time, really ever since inauguration day or inauguration week. But I think maybe the lack of trust is what's driving up people. The lack of voting.
I don't think it's just the lack of trust. I do think the lack of trust is a big issue. I think the other issue is there is a level of disengagement and apathy in this narcissistic world we happen to live in, where everyone cares more about the random shit that they got going on in their daily lives and making sure that they are able to maintain their freedoms tomorrow or for their children and their posterity. I think the big issue is when you live in a lot of these urban economic systems where the Democrats managed to run the gambit on you. There is no political, ideological, or infrastructural machine to combat the radical Marxism masquerading, cross-dressing as progressivism in these local areas. And we have the exact same thing showing up on the right, where you have rural areas where Republicans are in charge and there is no other machine to get to challenge it. So if you think there's no change and the guy who is the incumbent is always the guy that's going to win, what point is there to show up to the polls to vote to change anything when there is no change? In a lot of cases, I see a lot of Republicans with a lot of red on their chest who do the same damn shit that the Democrats do. And it strips the faith out of us.
Well, there is no better of example of that than right here in Georgia, where we have a Republican governor, Republican attorney general, and a Republican secretary of state who have all been involved in covering up the corruption in the Fulton County 2020 election results, which literally threw the state of Georgia from a Republican, a red state, into at least a temporary blue state. They had the evidence. They know exactly what's wrong. They know and we can go into great detail about what happened in Fulton County, but that changed the results of the election. The governor was going to call a special session. Suddenly his his daughter's boyfriend is blown up in a car going to a campaign event, flames 100 feet in the air. The Secretary of State has been covering up after saying Trump had an insurmountable lead in the 2020 election. And the Attorney General has been basically his lapdog in filing, using his powers as Attorney General, filing amicus briefs and things to keep the ballot secret, giving false legal opinions to the state election board. So it is, that's a great example of it. I think Mike Lindell referred to that as the triple crown of corruption here in Georgia. So that's what we're facing with. It's a perfect example of what you are talking about there, Julian.
I think the issue that a lot of people miss is there is a confluence of personal, financial, and ideological gains here. Like when you come up through the system, however you get elected, there is zero incentive once you come through that system successfully to thereby change that system, which might end in you being ousted out of your seat in the first place. Because the vast majority of these people, we think that they want to be in these positions for money. It's not money. It's power. It's not money, it's power. It's the ability to be the guy who makes the decisions. And then you get there and then you find out you're really not the guy who makes the decisions. That the system always perpetuates itself. No matter what, the system will protect itself. Like a virus, like chlamydia. These people are like frickin' herpes. You just can't get rid of them.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because there's an article that just dropped on the New York Post, and Fox News is covering this as well. Representative Ilhan Omar's net worth skyrockets to as much as $30 million. These people aren't interested in money. They're interested in power. They're interested in whatever enriches them. Whether it's money that gets the power or whether it's the power that gets them the money, these people are greedy, selfish, degenerate scumbags. They're all scumbags, which is why you and I don't agree on this, Julian, but I call every single politician out. Mm-hmm. Show me what is in your background that says you're a person of honor and integrity. Otherwise, you're just another empty suit in an endless line of people who are trying to con the average person into voting for them so that way they can get their money and they can get their votes. And it's an endless cycle. The cycle goes on. Politicians get rich, politicians get powerful, and the American public gets screwed every single time. Prove to me that I'm wrong.
Is that for me or for you or for Julie?
Whoever wants to take that and run with it. But I mean, I think it's a perfect example. $30 million. What the hell does Ilhan Omar do besides bang her own brother that gets her $30 million? You're a public servant. Oh, insider trading maybe? Oh, we know that happens.
But why do they want the money? They want the money because it buys them power.
Because it buys them creature comforts.
Yeah, well, creature comforts and power, yeah. Most people are not ideological. So the power thing would be, if you're an ideological person, power would be your motivation. If you're I guess, more debased, then it would be creature comforts, which most people are that debased. So most people would sell out their grandmother for $1 million.
And for an extra 50 cents, they'd ship her COD. Welcome to American politics.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this? What can Trump do to really crack down on election integrity? What is the big thing? Because every state has their own system. Every state has their own contracts. Every state has their own infected. I mean, shit, LBJ was the master of rigging elections, and I haven't seen a decent election since the 1960s. Like, I haven't seen anyone that passes the smell test. I'm wondering how you change 50 different 50 different states in every different locality in every iteration. Hell, I don't even think we have in 2 towns in New Hampshire that operate completely the same.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Joey. So a few things to talk about. As you mentioned, Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution grants the power to conduct elections to the states. However, if you read the second sentence of that, it says that Congress basically can dictate how to run federal elections if they choose to do so. That's why we've ended up with HAVA, MVRA, National Voting Rights Act. So in those cases, Congress has exercised its authority. So in the first executive order, the president basically complied with all federal law. So he had 9 sections, and each section he referenced federal law, which he was upholding for things like proof of citizenship, counting all ballots on election day or not accepting any ballots after election day, eliminating foreign influence. That's all covered on in the current statutes, the federal statutes. But to your point, how will he be able to do that? Well, I think the thing that Americans have to come to grips with is that we have a national election security crisis for the reasons that I just said earlier. Counting ballots in secret with secret proprietary software and then secretly preserving the ballots so no one ever knows what the results really are. That's a national security crisis, and it's happening in every state. So what I think that you'll see will be coming here shortly is that the president will use his emergency powers to rectify this, and that will give him much more authority than what he currently exercised in his first executive order. And he told us that there were more coming. I'll give you one example. The systems, none of the voting systems in America meet the critical infrastructure requirements under which they are supposed to meet according to the executive order that Obama created. And I forget the number, I think it's 13873. But that designated all voting systems as critical infrastructure. So, but yet they don't comply. They use foreign chips in their servers. They have all sorts of, they're not hardened. There's all sorts of issues, we could go into. But I think what we're going to see is that we're going to see him declare that the voting systems have to meet critical infrastructure standards before they can be certified for further use in American elections.
So I actually wrote a system when I was running for office when the election integrity was coming out, because I ran in 2022 after everything that happened in 2020. And my minimum system that I came up with was a voter ID CAT card distributed to every eligible voter in the United States upon your 18th birthday at the DMV right then and there, and it will be tied to and aggregating to verify your citizenship, your location, your residency, to avoid any fraud, and to have you arrested on the spot anytime somebody tries to cheat by aggregating your residency, your voter history, where your car is registered, school, work, everything. So all public information and government information aggregated in one system, so that at any point in time that you try to vote outside of your state where you are eligible to vote out of your voting jurisdiction, immediately that machine goes off, a cop comes, arrests you right on the spot. And on top of that voter CAT card ID, you put it into the system, you use your thumbprint on the machine, then that verifies your identity to the card. Then when you fill out your ballot, it prints you off a copy. It prints you a copy. It prints off a copy to go into a counting machine. And so now you have a receipt for any audits that are going to take place, so you can verify your vote after the fact. So now there's triple redundancy paper trails. So there is a paper count, and I've created an audit system in and of itself. And by doing that way, making it so that there's immediate accountability, all of a sudden you can't cheat, because most cheating is not voter fraud. Most cheating is electioneering. Mostly cheating is ballot fraud. And we kept pounding this home when we were working on election integrity in the 2022 cycle and 2020 cycle and the cycles since. We kept saying voter fraud, and I kept saying, you're losing the marketing game here, people, because you're referencing something that we have very little data to actually prove, because it's impossible to go back after an election and in 2 months argue a case that would take you 3 years to argue. What you need to be looking at is the very blatant, in-your-face electioneering, ballot fraud, and things like that.
Exactly, and that's one of my pet peeves. It's not the voters who are committing the fraud, it's election engineering, typically done with the help of election officials in a lot of cases. So that you're absolutely right. That's one of my, and I always try to correct everyone who claims that it's voter fraud. It's not the voters that are committing the fraud in most cases.
Yeah. I think a minimum system is necessary because we've gotten into this endless spiral of constantly, allowing people with their vested interest in keeping the system broken to be the ones guiding in deciding whether the system actually gets fixed. And I think it's about time that the American people get transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy as the guiding light for everything going on with elections and government in general.
Amen. Not much I can add to that.
Well, sir, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been a fantastic interview. Do you have anything that you would like to send people to support where they can find you?
Yeah. Thank you, Julian. So, first of all, voterj.org is our website. We have a ton of information up there. We have 5 active lawsuits in Georgia right now. We do a lot of training on different election issues. So that would be a great resource. The other thing that's unique about us is we are an all-volunteer organization. We do not take salaries, and so donations are tax deductible, and they go right into the lawsuits and our legal fees to keep our lawsuits going. And hopefully we will be able to save Georgia and America in the process.
Well, I want to thank you for that, and I especially want to thank you for being an all-volunteer organization and having the transparency of knowing that every dollar goes directly into the process of actually trying to heal our election system, because we live in a world where people find an issue and become grifters so that they can get famous off of whatever is paining the American people. So I want to thank you for that level of transparency and accountability. It's far, far too uncommon these days.
Thank you, John. We have a great volunteer network, amazing people. They've had certain skills and they've dedicated to the cause, and they're just fantastic people.
All right, people, that is Garland Favorito. He is, again, the co-founder of Voters Organized for Trusted Election Results in Georgia. It's Voter GA. You need to go support their work, help their organization, start to bring real transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy to America's election systems, and get active in your local community, because if you're not active in your local community or in your state, then shut the hell up, because you don't have a right to be pissed off. Get up off your ass.
All right, Garland, thank you so much for jumping on the program tonight. Appreciate it. Have a great evening, and God bless. And that is going to do it for this week's edition of Granite State Live. 833-603-8255 if you would like to leave us a voicemail. Also, email granitestatelive@gmail.com. Show suggestions, gripes, bitches, complaints, whatever you want to do, send it over there, granitestatelive@gmail.com. I'm going to be on the road next week, so we're going to try something a little bit different. Julian's going to be in the studio, and I am going to be joining you from the great state. I don't know if it's the great state, but the state of Indiana. Let's put it that way. So I will be via live remote. Julian will be in the studio. So until next week, folks, stay safe, be well, and remember, be nice to one another. Civility does work. God bless everybody.
The last thing decent to come out of Indiana is the Minneapolis 500 and Michael Jackson.
Gary, Indiana. Yeah. Gary, Indiana.